Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I'm doing. I had a pretty good weekend. Now I'm back here. But I do have some new stuff. Posters from Legendscon. Those are both. All three of these are from SWTOR. That one's pretty cool. I like that one. That one looks like a propaganda piece. It's pretty fun. That was pretty cool. There's a fourth one that shows like the family tree of the Skywalker starting at Shmi, but I have that outside my door. Um, but yeah, slightly livened up the place with my barren room. But I do have some stuff to talk about because not everybody watches other people's channels. So, um, quick things. I met Brennan and Marcel. The revanchist, and Brennan, my co-host, Quillen Voss, or I'm his co-host. Um, also met Nazo. He's been in the comments before, in live streams, and on Twitter. It was cool, and I met a lot of amazing people. But I'll get into that. But Brennan gave me one of the Star Wars Galaxy magazines. This one being issue 9. The other one I gave to Marcel because I know how much he loves Dark Empire. But it's pretty cool. A lot of cool things in here. We got a Wanderers short story. I remember reading this as like a PDF form, but that's here. It's pretty cool. Um, this world feels so dead, blistered by twin suns, hostile, desolate. But that's cool. We got toy stuff in here. It's a good piece of EU history. I have to collect these all back in the day. There's also a comic that's been collected now and other things, but we got Shadow Stalker, which is about the um, the guy that worked for Vader during Shadows of the Empire that we never met and is only in the comics, but he was cool, and I remember reading this back in the day, so you know, it's pretty cool. But I want to say thank you to Brennan for that because it's very cool. It's a very cool piece of EU to have in my collection. I need to get more physical copies of everything, but there's a lot of interesting stuff here. We got pricing lists, um, stuff for other magazines and whatnot, but just a very, very cool piece of EU that I now have thanks to Brennan. So thank you, Brennan. Something EU related, but not specifically EU. I met Abel G. Pena. I got a Legendscon exclusive interview book by Abel G. Pena called Legends Never Die. This is a Legendscon exclusive. It even says on the back, it's a Legendscon exclusive. What was it like helping to build the epic mythology known as the Star Wars Expanded Universe? In this collection of captivating and humorous interviews, author Abel G. Pena pulls back the curtains on the life of not just the Star Wars creator, but on the ultimate job for the ultimate fan. As the youngest writer dreaming up countless stories and characters for a galaxy far, far away, he details his journey in real time and off the cuff, while with verve and honest astonishment, always finding his way back to the fans and bring them along for the experience of a lifetime. Jam-packed with talk of the origins of the nickname Mando, to legendary projects both fulfilled and cancelled, copious new context and obscure details supplement the heartfelt interviews themselves, tracing the final days of the expanded universe. And I had to have it. I met a lot of people there, the big authors. We had Stover. There's a picture there of me online. It's already become a meme. I got to talk to Stover for 20 minutes about Verget. So that was pretty cool. One of the things I learned about that too, one thing I love about Stover is, at least with the overall theme and story that he tells, he obviously has opinions. He wrote the story, but it's also not his world, right? He's licensing it. He's working for Lucasfilm. It's Lucasfilm's story, and he's just helping. He doesn't protect it as much as like his own actual works like Acts of Cain and whatnot. But he does have actual opinions on it. But he doesn't want you to know them. He wants you to formulate your own opinion on each subject. Although the Verget thing was very specifically, like, I was not trying to be vague. How I wrote her was exactly how you were meant to perceive her. So, I told him obviously there's a retcon with Lucasfilm saying that she's a Sith, and that he obviously doesn't agree with that, but he also knows about the fan theory and acceptance that, the only person who really says this is Lumaya. And so a lot of fans, just like me, just accept it as her lying. And he's like, yeah, I like that too, because she's definitely lying, because there's no way she's telling the truth. Um, you know. But then he also said definitively, just because he thought it was obvious and it wasn't something he was really trying to make people interpret, was that Verget is also not a Jedi, which I've been hearing a lot online from a lot of people, which is that Verget is just a quintessential Jedi, like Yoda. Now, he did say, yes, I want her to be Yoda-esque, Yoda-like, but that was not meant to imply to anyone that she is basically Yoda, or that she is like this perfect Jedi. Because I mentioned, I always figured, her time with the Vong, she's changed. She has a different philosophy from most people due to the fact of her time away from, uh, the people being with the Vong for 20 years. And he's like, that was basically what I was trying to do. I didn't know that people thought I was doing something different. So, there's that. He obviously doesn't agree with anything said after Unifying Force, but also shockingly, he didn't know that Verget was going to die in the next book, or Vergier, or whatever you want to say. Because as far as he was aware, she was supposed to live on till the end of the series, so that was some interesting news. But Stover was great. Like, he was excited to talk about it. Like, he was trying to be like a teacher, and just so people don't think that I'm just like obscuring stuff, like when I did say, like, well, the universe, I mean, I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say. I was really nervous, and I was super amazed that he took the time to talk to me. But, I was like, I think the universe as a whole seems to show that the supernatural, that dark forces, light and dark, actually exist and can influence people. What I should have mentioned is like Kyle Katarn going into, Sith Temple and being instantly controlled, and Mara Jade having to save him, but I didn't mention that one. I mentioned the Dagobah Cave, and he said the same thing other people said. He's like, but what? It was great though, because he wasn't being mad or mean or anything. He was being like Verget. He was being a teacher, I still disagree with the universe as a whole, but, I understand where he's coming from. He went, yes, but what did Yoda say when Luke went into the cave? And I said, only what you take with you. He said, exactly. That's always the impression that I seem to have. His voice is very deep, too. It was great. All of Legendscon was incredible. But to get to the Legends Never Die thing, I watched Abel G. panel, and he talked about, continuity, filling in things, and all that stuff, and how he's a maximalist versus a minimalist. A minimalist could be somebody who only likes the 6 films, or only likes stuff up to, Visions of the Future, the Hand of Thrawn stuff, and don't read New Jedi Order or anything, and, but he's a maximalist. He wants to include everything he possibly can and make it fit, if he can. He doesn't like to exclude anything. He wants everything in the expanded universe to be a part of the expanded universe. He doesn't want to cut off any part of it and say, oh, that doesn't work. He wants to make it all work. So later on, I talked with Brennan and him and Kogi about the EU movement, or about, fans that are trying to band together to kind of get Lucasfilm to notice that a lot of fans, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them want more stories, and that the demand is there, which I think, if anything, that's the biggest accomplishment I could give to Legendscon, is showing physical proof that there are people here that will support it and want it, will celebrate it, and in the right hands want more. I mean, I think I asked as many authors as I possibly could, would you write more? And most of them are like, yeah, if they let us, Those stuff also happened with Stover and Lucasfilm, where he's not particularly thrilled, but there's that. But I was talking to Abel G. Pena, we showed him the billboards that, Chris and other people did in the past. But when I bought his book, he asked, because he was going to write his signature and everything, and he asked, what's the most important thing to you about Star Wars? And I said, continuity, So he wrote on the front. And he looked really, when I said that my favorite thing about Star Wars was continuity, he got such a grin on his face that I said that. And he wrote, Alex, continuity is the story. That was pretty incredible. I mean, Marcel did more of the talking, but we were just casually chilling with Sean Stewart for a bit. It was great. You know, Barbara Hamley's probably the only one that I wasn't like casually chatting with, but when I did get my book signed, Children of Jedi, by her, you know, I did ask her if she had any plans for Callista in like a prequel sense, and she said she did, but Lucasfilm went a different direction. And then she also didn't know that Callista was even in other books not written by her, so that was a surprise to her. But she thought that was really cool. Trying to think of what else. Jason 5 was there. Jason 5 was cool. What I got out of everything he said was that, Valance from the old Marvel comics is one of his favorite things, which is cool. Hey. Trying to think of what else. And then Stackpole, he was great, as I expected him to be. I didn't really talk to him not at all, but it was cool to listen to his panel. He was a cool guy. Randy Stratley, too, is a cool guy. I didn't talk to him too much. But, speaking of which, for those of you who don't watch other channels, my friend Brendan did ask him about the Brian Wood comics that came out, which were supposed to be not canon. And then also we talked to the guy that's working on the Epic Collections. His name escapes me at the moment. But both, Randy says, no, the Wood Wars comics are canon to the Expanded Universe. The guy that's currently working on those new Epic Collections, new Essential ones or whatever, he said it's kind of like a Supernatural Encounters thing where you can accept it or not accept it. He says he doesn't see anything explicitly contradictory, but it was meant to be, act as if the entire Expanded Universe doesn't exist, and you just have to watch episode 4 and dive in here. That being said, so you can take it or leave it, whatever you want. So that's interesting. But it's in his mind, it seems to be canon. So, because he's a guy, just watch you include everything you can, which is fair enough. So I'll redact my statement about it not being canon. I'll just be like, it's in this iffy state. But the absolute pleasure of the entire event had to be the Supernatural Encounters panel and Joe Bongiorno himself. Most humble, kind, amazing, one of the most amazing individuals I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Just grand time with that man. I hung out with him a lot outside of panels and stuff. It was crazy, Not that he was hanging out with me every second he had stuff to do, but still, we were vibing. It was a good time. And of course, I got my hardcover Legendscon exclusive Supernatural Encounters. See? Look at that. Look at that. You got the Legends Consortium on the bottom. Look at this thick boy. Look how big this is. Look at it. I mean, to be fair, the paperback that they had there, I took a picture of it, so you can find it on like Instagram. I'll probably share it. I gave a copy of the paperback to Surfer Eddie, another YouTuber, and to a friend of mine. So I bought 3 copies. It's great. But I prefer that cover. It's more dark, and I've always been more like a horror person. And I just kind of I dig the design of the paperback more. But, this will last me longer. So, but I'm pretty sure I can find that picture, some of the book, if I look hard enough. But I don't know if I would scroll through the whole thing, and take forever to find it. But this is pretty cool, though. Oh, frick. Hold on. Give me a split second here. Give me a split second. Yeah, it's pretty great. Look at it. Look at it. Freaking phenomenal. It's so big. Sorry. It's really cool, though. And of course, I got his signature, so it's also great. But he was one of the few authors, him and Abel G. Pena especially, that were really, they weren't being rude or anything, but they said continuity, like a big, large canon that you have to abide by its rules from, does not hinder creativity. It only provides more. And it was great to see that. But Joe's panel is phenomenal. He has a clear love of the EU. One thing that became explicitly clear to me, because a lot of people have been saying, well, he's just writing whatever he wants. he went out of his way to watch the most recent possible like interview slash documentary that George Lucas was a part of, because George Lucas is known to flip flop his mind, but he wanted to make sure he had the most accurate, current to date understanding of what Lucas feels about a lot of stuff, you know. And this book is 1,055 pages, but it's only like 960 pages of the actual story content. The rest of it is just reference notes, reference notes upon copious reference notes, so that you can see he didn't pull this out of his butthole, that it's actually, like, there's been thought put into it to make it fit, to make it work with pre-established lore. I mean, the Cthulhu thing, I was like, putting Cthulhu in Star Wars, but see, I didn't even remember. He did that in Splinter of the Mind's Eye. There is a statue that looks exactly like Cthulhu. First EU novel. So this goes back to the very beginning of the expanding universe. Nothing in here is something that he's just like, well, that sounds cool, I'm just going to add that just because. Everything here, minus a couple Easter eggs, is because it comes from somewhere else in the EU that he's compiling to make sense of it all, to make it work, to make it fit. And I'm sick of the debate. I want to talk about the actual book itself, which is phenomenal. Top 10 EU book of all time. If you can't read a word because it's too big for you, maybe look it up on Google instead of making fun of the word. Because that just makes... there's a lot of words I don't know from this book. There's a lot of words I didn't know that Lucino likes to use, because he likes to use his big thesaurus of his knowledge of big words for some reason. You just Google it. If you don't understand it, then don't... and you don't want to Google it, then don't complain. But whatever. It's a phenomenal book, and but it really became clear to me that there's been so much thought put into this. He had the time to make sure it was the least contradictory version of it as possible, and it also provided so much more context, because people say it shouldn't have taken this long, but then also, like, he excluded a Sith edition, right? Because he had stuff to say about Sith, but that's Lucas's domain, so he didn't want to tread on toes. But then Disney happened, and then Lucas is not, his input doesn't really matter anymore. But at the same time, he wanted to be respectful, because that's something that Joe is very consistent on. He wants to be respectful to all those involved, so he made sure he had the most up-to-date understanding of what George Lucas was going for, because themes and stuff don't change, authors and stuff may change, but themes do not. And so he made sure that if he was going to include Sith, that it was the most in line with George as possible, while adding more lore to it. But no, that entire panel was phenomenal. Kyle was great. Patrick was great. Lisa was great. Everybody that organized this event, worked hard. Stuff. It is, I think, the first step in this current age, because obviously, not to be a downer, Lucasfilm hasn't really listened before. They've kind of integrated Legends thing into canon, and on the one sense it's kind of cool, because it gets people who would otherwise have not known about the EU and gets them into it, because like, oh, Thrawn's in Rebels, Thrawn's in Ahsoka, what's Thrawn all about? So then they'll read some canon books, maybe they'll find their way to the EU and read the Thrawn trilogy, and then that gets them into a whole dive with the X-Wing books, so and now they're a huge expanded universe fan. It's a separate time, and for that I have to thank that. But for those of us who love the expanding universe, don't hate people like the new, but just aren't interested in that, getting a continuation would be really helpful. But it was a thing of, I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore, but it was good. It was the first real way of, I think, not the first real way. We had other things before, but it's clear that we're going to try new strategies, and maybe just having a con filled with a bunch of people that love it, can help, possibly can help get us to a point where they actually start paying attention. Because it would just provide more for everyone, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you ignore it, Like half of the Dune fan base ignores the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books. Well, the other half love it. It's just preference. Preferences. But I know that, Stackpole would write another one if asked, if they let him. Ibuji Pina would. Kogi probably would. There's Barbara Hamley. I mean, honestly, she might. I don't know. She's getting a bit older. But I think there's still about. I think the con was the most hopeful thing I've ever experienced. Just getting to meet everyone like Marcel and Brennan and Surfer Eddie and Ken Palpatine, and so many others. It was just surreal to see them all in the flesh, in person. It was really cool to see them, and all the panels were great. All the authors were great, and now I have all these memories and stuff. And it's just kind of awesome. Another thing we learned, right? So Banco, who wrote Legacy 2, again, this is not what the plan was, for two reasons. One, her and her, people that she was writing with, they were still, discussing, debating, coming to something with the story arc. But then also, so we asked about Anya Solo's origins. And they were under an NDA that they couldn't talk about it because Lucasfilm at some point was going to write a novel, or a series of novels that would eventually lead to that revelation. But in Banco's mind, in her mind at least, the idea that Cade ran away, did not embrace who he was, and then by the end finally did. But Anya believed, that she was a Solo. And so that when she keeps, searching into it, had the comics not been cut short, she would have realized, I'm not, and that's okay. Somebody made an interesting theory that there's the A.C. Crispin books. There's that one guy that calls himself Solo, right, even though he isn't. What if he got a girl pregnant before he died? It's possible. And then I could explain why his name's Solo, because it was a name that he changed his last name to honor Solo. Could work, I don't know. Like a great-granddaughter or something. Then we also learned that the assassin droid, for the longest time we had a running theory that was C-3PO. But she said, that's funny. It was something like that. The idea was that the droid was going to be somebody from Han Solo's past. Like a droid from his past. And I can't think of another prominent droid in Han Solo's life outside of Bullocks and Blue Max. So who knows, So that was really cool. And yeah. It was a phenomenal experience. It went much better than I expected it to. Met a lot of amazing people. And yeah, I just hope that one day we can get more. There's stories left unfinished. I think that's the biggest thing. Like if the story was concluded in in some way, shape, or form, I wouldn't be complaining, oh, why don't we get more? Why don't we get more? Because, at least the story is a bookend. You can just move on with your life. But the problem is reading these books, spending your time on, you realize it doesn't really end. Like, again, you have the friends that say, oh, it ends at Unifying Force. What are you talking about? Sure, whatever. But for those who like all the stuff, there's no end. It just stops. Then you cut ahead like another couple 30 to 40 years. But Star Trek again. Their books were never ever canon, unlike the EU. It was just a separate thing that they did. That you could have fun with. That's all it ever was, the books. But they did have this like interlace, kind of like the EU continuity post Nemesis, right? And their story was not finished. There was still more to tell. And so fans begged them, please, 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 give us some more to finish up the storyline, and then we won't complain anymore. And they got it. It was called Star Trek Coda. It was a trilogy. So they finally got an end for themselves, and that's great. And I guess that's all that I'm asking for too. I mean, I don't know if every Trek fan loves it. I mean, I haven't talked to Trek fans about it, but regardless, at least it's out there, right? Worst case, you just ignore it. They were never canon anyway, right? So I don't know. But absolutely phenomenal. Went much better than expected. So glad to have met everyone. Thank you for everyone who worked on it, to make it happen. Because it seemed like the authors were having the time of their life. We were having the time of our life. Everybody was just happy to be there. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like anybody really was there out of obligation or because they had to be, you know. And so it was a joy to see everyone be so happy. Matthew Stover, Ava Pina, Kogi, um, everyone. Meeting Dylan and Brian has to be one of the most surreal moments. I had dinner with them like last night. It was crazy, or the night before that. Sorry, it was just so surreal to meet them, and it was a joy to meet them. And maybe next year we can meet Matt and everything, and we'll see. But thank you, Legendscon. Thank you for a unforgettable weekend. And thank you everyone for watching. I got my Supernatural Encounters. I got my Star Wars Galaxy magazine. I got my Abel G. Pina interviews, Legendscon exclusive. But yeah, it's been great, and I hope you have all a fantastic rest of your week. I got some more interviews left and whatnot. But yeah, it's been good, and then we'll move on back to finishing off my thoughts on Supernatural Encounters, and then we'll move on from there. So anyway. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Showing up to a ton, if you could. Also, I should do a separate video. Thank you for 405 subscribers. That's really cool of you. Thank you so much. My videos are retarded, but thank you for being here anyway. And long live the EU. It's a universe we're celebrating, and I don't know. Like I said before, 2019 was a bad year for me. 2020 was a bad year for everyone, and the EU got me through it. It may be just a story, doesn't affect my day-to-day life, but it's something to escape day-to-day life. It's what fiction's meant to do. It's why we read books. Not so that we could be reminded constantly that we have to go pay bills tomorrow. Right? It's to make you go somewhere else for a bit. Part of the reason I want to act. One, because I made my teacher cry, so I think I have a chance. Two, because you can just be someone else. Fulfill somebody else's story that they wish to tell. Like, what an amazing tool to be for somebody. Like, I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway, Legendscon, thank you so much. Authors, thank you so much. A special shout out to Abel G. Pina and Joe. You guys are the best. And I feel like Joe might actually watch this, because Joe, I don't know why Joe thinks I'm cool or anything, but you're amazing. You are such a splendid and wonderful man, human being. Thank you. Same with you, Abel. You were so cool, so slick. It was so cool to hear you talk about Skywalkers and other things that you've worked on, and it was just an absolute pleasure to meet you. And not that he's watching this anyway, but Kyle had this energy about him. He was a lot of fun. I didn't get to talk to him too much, but he was a really fun guy. Saw Brian's basement. That was kind of cool. Kind of. I didn't talk to him very much. He just kind of said hi and went away. I got recognized a couple times too, which is cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Till next time. May the force be with you. Bye-bye.